So, bonus pod for y'all tonight. NBA draft is in progress right now, day one. They're getting towards the end of the first round. I don't have any interest back into the first round. My team could come back, theoretically speaking, into the first round. I don't think it's going to happen, though. But I've seen my team come back into the first round and make an additional first round selection. I would not be shocked to find out later on that they did so. But we'll discuss some of the picks that have been made, some of the moves that have been made. NBA offseason off to a rousing start. I think it's a sign of things to come for what I think could be a wacky, wild, and crazy NBA offseason. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Tom Brady is morphing into what Kobe Bryant was prior to his death. We'll talk about that a little bit and give you I'll give you my take as to why I feel that way. And Blue Eye Samurai, I told you guys. I was 2 episodes in. I said the next time I see you, I'll be done. It was that good. I did not anticipate that I would have binged it last night, but that's exactly what I did. I literally got off the stream with you guys last night and sat down and watched 6 straight episodes. So I'm ready to talk about it. So all of that and more tonight on this bonus pod edition of the Louie T Network podcast. Now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T, here on this bonus pod edition of the Louie T Network podcast. I said I wanted to come on and do a little something for you guys. And if, the spirit hit me, if things kind of lined up correctly for it to happen, and it did. So here we are. So we'll talk about a number of topics tonight on the show. And I'm going to start off talking about the NBA briefly. We'll jump into a little Tom Brady discussion. I'm very fascinated with where he's gone from this fierce competitor to now a guy that has allowed you in. He's pulled the curtain back, similar to Kobe Bryant. And I'll explain. You probably understand exactly what it is I'm referring to, but we'll get to that in a second. Big trade in the NBA today, or was it last night? I guess it was overnight. I woke up to it. I know that much. I don't know exactly when it took place, but that changes things. That's a massive trade. A lot was given up in that deal. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the NBA draft. This is, this was supposed to be one of the worst in recent memory. There are going to be some players that end up being really good out of this draft class. You just hope you were one that stumbled upon one of those guys. This was supposed to be a draft that if you were a team ready to win now, this is supposed to be a drafting paradise for you. For the teams looking for a future superstar, this is not the draft for you. Come back next year, right? So if you were a team looking for an elite role player, a guy that could come in and help you right away, this is more along the lines of what you were looking for. You feel like you can get a guy or two out of this particular draft. But we will talk more about that here in a second. Let's talk about the Knicks, man. Because that was a hell of a trade. We had heard that the Knicks were interested in adding another elite defender and a guy who continues to surface in terms of interest around the league. They weren't the only team interested. As a Grizzlies fan, I can tell you that Mikal Bridges was a guy that Memphis offered 3 first-round picks for about a year and a half ago. Like, he's been a commodity that's been dangled out there for quite some time. The Kevin Durant deal doesn't get done without him being included. The Suns did everything in their power not to include him in that deal, and they ultimately had to if they wanted to get Kevin Durant. So that's how he ended up in Brooklyn. Um, Things did not work out the way that they wanted them to in Brooklyn. They went downhill fast in Brooklyn. And now you're just sitting here with a bunch of commodities that other teams around the league can use, like a DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith. For those of you like, who the hell is DFS? Dorian Finney-Smith, um, Cam Johnson, and Mikal Bridges, right? All of them were sitting there as very useful NBA pieces that teams could use, wings that can help NBA teams. Cam Johnson is an elite shooter. Mikal Bridges is an elite 3-and-D guy that has shown the ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket and create his own shot as well. And then, Dorian Finney-Smith has not been, the kind of shooter you would like him to have evolved into, but he's still a really good defender, a guy that can knock down some shots and does have a role in the NBA as a bigger wing. So I don't think the Nets are done. They had a trade with Portland as well. Um, so we're going to see what happens. But 5 first-round picks? Like, I know that he was in high demand and the Nets weren't going to give away Mikal Bridges. I'm fully aware. 5 first-round picks, though? What? The Knicks clearly wanted, and he's on such a very friendly deal. Like, that's part of the reason you give up what you give up to get a Mikal Bridges, because he's on a very good deal, which allowed the Knicks to then re-sign OG Anunoby, which is a ridiculous contract. Like, that contract won't age well for the Knicks. I'll put money on that. That'll be one they'll regret 2-3 years down the road. But um, they had to do what they had to do to keep him. You give up something to get him, and you don't want him to leave, so you got to give up what it takes from a deal perspective to keep him in New York. And now you got this. I think you got to move Julius Randle, don't you? I mean, I don't think that. I think they were better off without him. I said that during the postseason run. We didn't know what they really truly looked like without him, but seeing how Jalen Brunson has taken over as the commander of that team, the general, and there's one ball, and Jalen Brunson is so ball dominant, and now you have all these other guys that are shooters, and you're spacing the floor, and you've already, you're gonna either re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein or you're not, right? Whatever the deal is, you've got bigs in New York. And so I think you can get away without having Julius Randle on the floor. And I'll take it a step further. I don't know Julius Randle, but I've seen temper tantrums thrown on the floor when he didn't get the ball. You know, he strikes me as a guy, and I don't know this to be a fact. I don't know Julius Randle. I can't say that this is actual factuals. He strikes me as a guy that was praying that the Knicks didn't play well while he was out during the playoffs. I guarantee I can't say that. I'd be willing to put money up that if we had the ability to get into Julius Randle's head, or we were able to give him truth serum, and we asked him, "Do you want this team to succeed without you?" I bet you he was hoping they got eliminated. He did not want them to be successful without him. He strikes me as that type of guy, right? So for what they're building now, they got 4 ex Villanova players who won the national championship from that team. What was it, 2018, I believe, when they won the Natty? Um, DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and now Mikal Bridges. It's crazy. So they're the New York well, the Villanova Knicks of what they turned into, the Villanova Knicks, Knickerbockers. That's a massive deal, though. I mean, we know Tibbs loves his defenders, and now they added another guy that's going to be a hound defensively, that'll stretch the floor, that'll give them another shooter. Um, I mean, they're almost imitating the Boston Celtics in a way because of now they've got so many perimeter defenders. They can go extremely small. The only thing they won't be able to do, because they don't have a big that can shoot, is they can't stretch the floor and go 5 out offensively. But they can switch just about everything, especially if Isaiah Hartenstein is brought back. You can switch. You have to play more drop coverage with Mitchell Robinson, but with Isaiah Hartenstein, you can switch everything. And he can hold his own, you know. Even if we saw that in the postseason, even when you force him out on the perimeter against a guard, he can hold his own. So the Celtics are gonna, I mean, the Knicks are gonna become a problem after this deal. Like, this is that's a pretty big move, getting Mikal Bridges. So and again with OG Anunoby, you can play OG Anunoby at the 4 if you want to go small, like super small. And think about a lineup like this. This is why I said you don't really need Julius Randle. Again, if you want to go 5 out, you keep Randle, you can go 5 out and he can be your 5. Here's the problem. You lose rim protection if Julius Randle's playing the 5. But I mean, that's the same thing that happened with the Celtics. That they don't have any rim protection when Al Horford is playing the 5. Good luck getting to the rim against that perimeter defense, though, right? And that's what the Knicks are trying to recreate. So, I guess when you think about it from that perspective, there is a place still on that roster for Julius Randle. But boy, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But you think about it, you could have a lineup with Randall at the 5, OG Anunoby at the 4, Bridges at the 3, DiVincenzo at the 2, and Brunson at the 1. Or you could have Hart, in there if you want more defense for DiVincenzo. If you want more shooting, then you put DiVincenzo out there. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with and first of all, I say that, and Tibbs is only playing like 7 dudes, 7 or 8 guys, and running them into the ground. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it all goes, but that's a great position to be in if you're the Knicks. They're going for it. I think that trip to the Eastern semis, and being essentially 1 game away from the Eastern Conference Finals, I think it energized them and it put them in the frame of mind that with all the injuries that we suffered, to get to where we got to despite having as many guys go down as we did, shows where we are and how good we could potentially be if we're healthy and we just push our chips to the center of the table. They're going for it, are the Knicks. They're going to be a fun team to watch next year. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. They've got to be the chief um, deterrent to the Celtics getting back to the NBA Finals. I would think in the East now. I know teams like the Bucks might have something to say about that, but they seem to have taken a step back after the first year of Giannis and Dame didn't, work out all that well. So we'll see. It feels like it's Boston or New York right now in the East after these series of moves, getting OG Anunoby to stay and trading for Mikal Bridges. And they're not done yet because they got to figure out what's going to happen with Isaiah Hartenstein. I think they're trying to move Mitchell Robinson. Good luck with that. But um, we'll see what happens. The Knicks are off to a great start. Let's talk NBA draft real quick. So let me pull out my device. Um, Somebody says, nope, the Pacers are the threat to Boston. I disagree. They had a nice run last year. I if the Knicks are healthy, they don't get past the Knicks last year. I think anybody would agree with that assessment. It took about 5 dudes being hurt for the Knicks to get the Pacers, and really, I as much as I respect what the Pacers did last year, um, they probably benefited from injuries more than any team in the postseason because I don't know if they get past the Bucks if Giannis is healthy, if Dame is healthy. Like the Bucks were all kinds of banged up, and so they were able to get past the Bucks. And then the Knicks were all kinds of banged up, and so they were able to get past the Knicks. And then they got banged up themselves, and they should have won game 1 against the Celtics, and every single one of those games were close. But the biggest issue with the Pacers, and I think it's going to continue to be an issue, which is why I don't think they're going to be able to beat the better teams in the East, is they don't play enough defense. They don't play enough defense. And you can't be a defensive deficient team and expect to beat teams like Boston and New York and the 76ers if they're healthy. And, even a team like the Bucks, who they beat, I just think you're going to struggle if you meet these teams relatively healthy with what they can do offensively if you can't play better defense than the Pacers did last season. And we'll see. Maybe they grow defensively, do the Pacers. But I still think after the moves that have been made, you got to think that the biggest jump in the East has taken place thus far is with the New York Knicks and their ability to now challenge a team like Boston with all the defense that they can put on the perimeter now and all of the shooting that they can also put on the floor along with that defense. That's what it's going to take in this new day and age in the NBA. You're going to have shooters, you're going to have perimeter defenders, and you're still going to have somebody at the rim that can protect. You're going to need to be able to switch almost everything. So you're going to need switchability. You're going to need shooting. And you're going to have shot making. You're going to have guys who aren't afraid to take those big shots. The Knicks have all of those things now with the addition of Mikal Bridges. Thanks. So let's get to the NBA draft, see where we are. And so we're on the last pick now. Last pick. So just want to run through the lottery real quick. I don't need to get into a lot of the picks that were made towards the back end of the first round. The Celtics are now on the clock. They're the final pick of day 1 of the draft. But real quick, Risha went 1 overall to the Hawks. The Hawks desperately tried to get out of this number 1 overall pick. Problem was nobody wanted to take it off their hands, and they weren't going to give it away, right? It's still the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So it's still a commodity that holds tremendous value, whether you love this draft or not. So they weren't going to just give it away. They were going to make somebody pay for that number 1 overall pick. They wanted to do business with the Spurs because the Spurs had 2 picks in the top 8. But the Spurs were like, nah, I'm not giving you either of my picks. And what's funny about that is the Spurs ultimately flipped one of those one of those selections, the 8th one. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But Risha goes first. And if you're a team like the Hawks, you needed to try to swing for the fences. So it needed to be one of those Frenchmen. It needed to be Risha or Sarr. It needed to be one of those 2 guys. And so they end up going with the wing, Risha, and we'll see what he turns out to be. Alex Sarr was the 2nd pick to the Washington Wizards. Again, you needed to swing for the fences if you are the Wizards. You go for a guy with tremendous upside here. You put him next to Koulibaly, and you continue to try to build with young pieces that you hope in 3 or 4 years formulate a nice nucleus that you can start to try to win basketball games with. They're in the process of putting that together. It was funny. I was just having a conversation with my buddy, and he said about the Wizards, man, it's a lot of kids out there. I said, yeah, you still need somebody to babysit the kids, which is why I think they traded for Malcolm Brogdon, right? You still need somebody to babysit the kids. And look, he could be easily thrown into a deal on an expiring contract. So he could be thrown into some, deal down the road. They may try to get rid of um, as I still think they're cleaning house. If you're gonna trade away, and I didn't even love necessarily the deal that they got for Denny Abdivja. I thought Denny was on a very good contract. I thought he played the best ball of his career last year, coming off of the best season. I just thought that the value was greater than what they got from Portland for Denny, right? But they flipped that, got the 14th pick, and they took Bub Carrington there. So it's going to be a lot of kids out there with the Wizards, and again, still need somebody to babysit the kids. So I think you'll see a situation where at some point, I think there are more trades coming. More trades. I think it feels inevitable now that damn, what's the light skinned dude name? I don't know why I can't think of his damn name, but it feels inevitable that he's going to be traded here shortly at some point. Um, Reed Shepard goes to the Rockets at number 3. Um, Shot lights out last year from deep, and it's interesting because Houston is a young team, but they feel like they're ready to win. And we heard a lot of KD conversation today, and the Suns shut that down very quickly. And Shepard is going to come in, and he's going to give them something that they desperately need: more shooting. Everyone can use shooting. We'll see what he's able to do as a defender, and how he holds his own in that regard. But they aired on the side of shooting. And after watching the NBA playoffs this year and seeing how teams are shooting the basketball and at the rate that they're shooting the ball, especially from deep, you had to know Reed Shepard was going to end up being a commodity that was going to come off the board rather quickly. The Spurs took Stefan Castle at number 4, and I honestly thought that they would go for a shooter and they would go for a guard with their 2 picks. So I wasn't shocked that Stephon Castle was the pick here. He fit the guard, conversation, a guy that can create shots for others, a guy that can create for himself. Um, he's shown the ability to get to the rim. He's big, so he's a guy that can play the point. He's a combo guard, really, but depending on how you want to play it, if you want to play small ball, you could probably play him at the 3 as a wing, but he's really more of a combo guard is Stephon Castle. So there's a little bit of, value in Stephon Castle being your lead guard. He said he wanted to be a point guard, that he's going to get that opportunity playing alongside Wemby. And so I think it's a really good fit, I think it's a good fit for him in San Antonio. Ron Holland is taken by the Pistons at 5. This is where things got interesting for me as a Grizzlies fan, because Ron Holland, to me, is a guy that he might end up being the best player in this draft. Like, a lot of people see him as a potential Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard type guy that is really good on the defensive end right now, extremely athletic, can put the ball on the floor, can create, but he can't shoot. That was pretty much the DNA profile of Jaylen Brown and Kawhi Leonard coming out of college. Brown coming out of Cal and Kawhi coming out of San Diego State. So I see similarities there, but we'll see if he develops the way those two did. I thought we were also going to find out how the new team president / GM, Trajan Langdon, felt about the roster, because clearly he's coming in and he doesn't give a shit about what was done prior to him getting there. Even if you were drafted last year, I didn't draft you. I'm coming in and I'm doing what I want to do. So a guy like Jalen Duren, who's only 20 years old, we were questioning, does Trajan Langdon value him? And if he doesn't, could they take a guy like Donovan Clingan at 5? We'll find out. A lot of kids out there in Detroit. They're adding another kid to the mix in Holland, who I don't even know if he's 20 yet. He's probably 19 right now, is my guess. But you add another big wing in a league where everybody's looking for big wings, and you just see what this kid can end up becoming, right? I don't hate this. You take a massive cut here if you're the Pistons with a guy that arguably is the most talented player in this draft, pound for pound, and see if he can, fit into what it is they're doing, which I don't think anybody actually knows what the hell the Pistons are doing. I don't even know if the Pistons at this point know what the Pistons are doing. Anyway, I digress. Saloon went 6th overall to the Hornets. And so this was kind of twofold for me as a Grizzlies fan. So one, this entire time, I did not think that Donovan Clingan would get past the top 5 of this draft, the top 4, really. So getting to 6, that's when I said I would be willing to pick up the phone if I'm Memphis and give the Hornets a call and see if they would be willing to do business. On one end, you were hoping that Charlotte, who has Mark Williams as a center, but he's dealt with some injuries, but they like him a lot. So do I. Former Dookie. Very, very good big. I think, and the potential for him to be even better at this level is great if he can just stay healthy. I think we've seen enough flashes for him that he has a chance to be a really good big, a really good piece on a good playoff caliber NBA team. And so I don't think you want to double down and take another lottery pick big if you already have a guy you feel good about. And you already still have a good quality backup big on a cheap contract behind him. They didn't really need to mess with what they had in the front court, to me, right? So the question then became, could you slide Donovan Clingan past them and the Blazers at 7? If you did, you were probably home free. If you're the Grizzlies, clearly somebody could jump in front of you with San Antonio. But the likelihood is if he got past 7, he was going to get to you at 9. And I know for a fact Memphis picked up the phone. But I also know that the asking price was probably too great, which is why the deal didn't get done. And it was only 2 teams bidding, right? It was Portland trying to move up to 6 to ensure that Memphis didn't jump in front of them. And it was Memphis trying to jump up from 9 to ensure that Portland didn't get their guy. And at the end of the day, if you're Memphis, there's a certain amount of capital you were willing to part ways with. Once that price exceeded what you were comfortable with giving up, you had to say, hey, I got a plan B. I'm not tripping. And if you're Portland, you go, hey, look, I'm going to call your bluff. I know you're not taking Donovan Clingan. If I don't trade up, you ain't taking him. And if Memphis is going to give up what you're asking for them to give up, fine, so be it. But I know for a fact that if Memphis doesn't trade up, you're not taking him. He'll fall right into my lap. I don't have to do anything. So Portland was like, hey, do what you do. And so the Hornets said, well, bet. We'll take Saloon, you know, a big slash wing that we feel like can fit with the guys that we've drafted the last about 4 years, and they're building some things out there. If some of these young players can develop, stay healthy, you can finally see what you truly have. Because you got the kid from uh, Alabama last year who played really well as a rookie, right? You got LaMelo Ball. I just talked about Mark Williams. You add Saloon, you got stuff in Charlotte. It needs to stay healthy. Um, Brandon, what's his name? Brandon something. Know why I'm blanking on his last name, but yeah, there's stuff out there, and you add Saloon to that mix, and you hope that he can be another building block piece for the Hornets. Klingon obviously went 7th overall to the Portland Trail Blazers, which was like a dagger into my heart. I would have much rather a team in the top, like and I knew the Wizards weren't going to take him, but I would have much rather a team in the top 4 take him, so I could have been put out of my misery immediately. For him to get as close as 7, knowing that if he wasn't picked at 6, which we needed the card to be turned in with Donovan Clingan's name on it at 6, with the Hornets, because if that was the case, then it would have probably meant that Memphis had agreed to a deal with them, and they would end up with the rights to Donovan Clingan. When they turned in the card and Saloon's name was up there, you knew he was going to Portland. It was a foregone conclusion. And so now Donovan Clingan is in Portland, and a lot of people struggle with why this is even a good pick, because you have DeAndre Ayton, you have Robert Williams out there, you got all these bigs already in Portland. Why do you need a Donovan Clingan? And I listened to a Blazers fan talk about how this could come to be and why it makes sense in the timeline. The Blazers suck, and they're not going to be good for another 3 or 4 years. And so the timeline doesn't fit a DeAndre Ayton who has 2 years left. It doesn't fit an Anthony Simons who has 2 years left. It doesn't fit a lot of the guys that they have out there right now. Whereas, Scoot Henderson, who they drafted last year, um, why am I forgetting the guy they drafted the year before that? That's the core. That's the young core that they're going to try to win with, and they're going to add Klingon to that, right? So, by the time they're ready to start competing for something meaningful, a lot of the guys that they have now won't be there. So Klingon made a lot of sense for them, and it sucks because he is going to be wasted these first 2 years on a team that isn't playing for anything, whereas a team like Memphis could have utilized him immediately. The only thing I will say is that he's had issues with his foot. He's had weight issues, things of that nature. And a lot of the weight issues and that fluctuating and him being in shape has been directly tied to the foot injuries and him not being able to stay active and work out and things of that nature. And so this was really his first year being totally healthy and being a guy you can rely upon, and play really well. So good for Portland. I'm disappointed. I'm not going to lie. Good for them, though. At 8, Rob Dillingham was the selection by the Spurs, but they traded him to the Timberwolves. That's a good trade for the Timberwolves. And I think about what was given up. I thought the Spurs wanted, the Timberwolves first round pick from this year. And it was like, nah, we good. We don't want nothing else in this year's draft. We straight. Not in the first round, at least. but we'll take your 2031 first round pick and we'll take a pick swap in 2030. And I'm like, that's it? That's what you got for the 8th pick in the draft? So clearly they didn't think much of this year's draft. Did the Spurs. They got what they needed and they got out. So, and maybe there was another guy that they wanted. Maybe it was Donovan Clingan that they wanted at 8. And once he was off the board, or it was Saloon that they wanted at 8. And once he was gone, they were like, well, it ain't nothing else here for us. Or Ron Holland, whatever the case may be. One of the guys that they probably wanted was no longer available. And so they got out of the pick. Then you get to Zach Edey at 9 for my Grizzlies. Wow. So let me just say this. This pick is universally being panned. People are killing this pick. Killing this pick. Murdering this pick. I saw one lady on who was representing Yahoo Sports say that this was the worst pick she's ever seen in the NBA draft. I'm like, come on, man. Seriously? Like, Anthony Bennett was picked number 1 overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, are you really going to sit here and look me in my face and tell me that this is the worst pick ever made? And then, I'm thinking about, this isn't even the worst pick in Memphis Grizzlies history. We took Hasheem Thabeet at number 2 overall. Like, what are you talking about? But that's nor here nor there. It just goes to show you that nobody expected Zach Edey to be taken at 9. I didn't expect Zach Edey. And I had heard earlier today that Memphis was, because we keep things hush hush in Memphis. There's not a lot of news that gets out about guys that we're bringing in for private workouts, players that we might be interested in. You don't hear a lot about that stuff. So today we got our first real, tidbit of news about Zach Edey being high on Memphis's radar. And obviously Donovan Clingan was option 1. Option 2 was Zach Edey. And the thing is, nobody else was going to take him. They knew he would be there at 9. Like, you would prefer to trade back and get Zach Edey, not take him at 9. I don't know if Memphis had a chance to move back, tried to move back, whatever the case may be. But all anybody is focusing in on is defensively, he's going to be a fish out of water. And then all you kept hearing is, oh, John Moran is so fast, and the Grizzlies, yeah, we push the pace. You get the rebound, you run. Zach Edey isn't going to run. Zach Edey also isn't going to be playing but 25 minutes a game. If you know how the Grizzlies operate, then you know that this is the type of big that they like to start alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. You will know that Jonas Valanciunas was the first big that they had in the mix. He was there for a couple of years. Then they traded, or they went and got Steven Adams, and he was the big. And we won 50 plus games 2 years in a row. I think it was 106 games or something like that, 50 and then 56 games, and was second in the West 2 years in a row, right? The second seed. So understand that this is the type of big that they were after. Not maybe this particular big, but they were after a big like this. And while I'm a little disappointed that you had to pull the trigger on Zach Edey at 9, they weren't going to get him at 39. And they clearly didn't want to have to package up picks and give up future assets to get back into the first round to get him. So they did what they felt like they needed to do. They were always going to try to get a big in the draft. I've said all along that the thing that they needed to come away with in the draft, one of two things, if at all possible, both would be great, is you needed to come away with a big and a shooter. Well, they got the big. Now, there were reports that at the combine, Edie moved way better than Donovan Clingan did. And Edie's shown improvement these last couple of years with his movement skills. He is what he is. He's going to be playing drop coverage. And yes, teams are going to put him in the pick and roll. Yes, teams are going to try to take advantage of him, but you're going to be shooting a lot of perimeter shots playing against the Grizzlies. You can't come into the paint with both Zach Edey and Tripp protecting the rim. It's going to be tough for you to score those first, 8 to 10 minutes of the game when he's in there, giving you some quality minutes to start the game off. Because he's going to protect the rim. He's going to set hard screens. He's going to roll to the basket. He's going to rebound the hell out of the basketball. And when the Grizzlies are at their best, they're rebounding the basketball. We're usually atop the league or somewhere in that mix in both paint points and rebounding. We weren't last year, obviously, for obvious reasons. And the year prior to that, we weren't as efficient as of a rebounding team because Steven Adams got injured. So when we're at our best, we got a big in there that's a traditional big. Again, did I expect it to be Zach Edey? No, I did not. But am I disappointed with the pick? Disappointed a little with how early we had to pull the trigger on Zach Edey. Am I disappointed with getting a 7'4" big with a 7'10" wingspan that you're going to have to shoot over, who's going to alter shots at the rim? No, I'm not. Who's going to set screens, be physical, who's 300 pounds, who's going to be an imposing figure and a guy that's going to make it tough on teams, who's going to walk in the gym and get you 10 boards a night alongside a guy that doesn't rebound the basketball very well and Jaren Jackson Jr. No, I'm not upset about that. Do I love the pick? No, I don't love the pick. But do I understand the purpose behind the pick? Yes, I do. So there is that. Cody Williams goes to the Jazz at 10. Makes a lot of sense there. He's a guy that is a wing that, again, depending on how you want to deploy him, he can play the two, but I think he's more of a wing, a three, 3-and-D guy that can play defense right now, can shoot it. I think the shooting is something that I still question, even though he shot it over 40%. He was on very, very low volume last year. So I need to see that again to be sure that he is a legitimate shooter. He's got to put on some weight. He's a little thin right now. And so the Jazz are just collecting stuff. They're trying to collect as much stuff as they can, try to figure out where they fit in the Western Conference that's rough, tough, and rugged. They're just trying to figure out what pieces fit the puzzle. And so you take a guy like Cody Williams and you hope that he develops into a really good NBA 3-and-D guy at worst, but you're hoping he develops into a 3-level scorer that can defend and play both ends of the floor and become a borderline all-star type player. That's what you're hoping. The likelihood is he won't. And you're hoping at that point he just becomes a really good 3-and-D type of player. Matas Buzelis goes to the Bulls at 11. He is a guy that makes a ton of sense for them from this standpoint. He's going to come in and do a little bit of everything. So they're looking to move, I think, Zach LaVine, right? If you're looking to move LaVine, you've already moved Caruso. DeRozan is up in the air as to what's going to happen with him. And, excuse me, you're kind of changing how this team looks. We'll see what they use him as, how they feature him, and how they utilize him. But he's got a unique skill set. And so he's a guy that can handle the ball a little bit. He can distribute. I think the shooting might come along a little bit later. The stroke isn't broken. And there's some things there that you like with him. But once again, another one of these European guys that he could be solid for you. Don't think he's going to be a star by any stretch of the imagination, right? But you never know. You never know. Nikola Topic got injured, tore his ACL. Which is why he fell down the board. Um, I don't really necessarily love this pick for OKC. You literally traded away Josh Giddey and replaced him with Josh Giddey again. Like, I don't really understand uh, the logic behind this pick. I think they could have gone in a number of different directions and it would have made a lot more sense to me, but they did what they did. And again, they went out and got Caruso, so we'll see how all of it fits together for them next season. And then the last pick in the lottery was Devin Carter out of Providence, the point guard that a lot of people loved. People were gushing over this kid, a coach's son, the um, analytics people love Devin Carter. Smaller guard, right? Roughly 6'2" ish, but has like a 6'9" wingspan. So he's one of those long defending, guards on the perimeter. He's a guy that shot 37-ish% from deep this year, which is a career high. The previous 2 years, he was sub 30. So I need to see that this is real, that he didn't just have this out of body experience this past year, and that he's actually a guy that's going to continue to grow as a shooter. But he can put it on the floor. He's a mean defender, right? And so there are a lot of traits here that you like if you're the Sacramento Kings. It's just interesting because it feels like the Kings already have like two guys that are exactly like this on their roster already, but which means they may be looking to ship one of them out here shortly. But nonetheless, it's a guy that a lot of people liked, including myself, and he's now a member of the Kings. Just quickly, a couple of names. Khalil Ware was a guy that I was really fond of in this draft. He goes to the Heat. We'll see if he fits into the Heat culture, because that one of the knocks on him was motor and effort, and mentally, was he a guy that was going to be all into team ball and not playing for self? Clearly, they vetted him. They feel good about him. I thought he was one of the most talented players in this entire draft class. I think this is a really good spot for him if he develops the way that I think he could potentially develop. Jared McCain goes to the 76ers, former Dookie, can shoot the lights out of the basketball. A little on the small side if you're a 76ers fan, but clearly you needed more shooting. You don't have enough of it, and Jared McCain is going to provide you with that. And so you can play him next to Tyrese Maxey, and that'll help you with some more floor spacing. Allow Maxey to be able to get to the rim without, because you can with Joel Embiid, if you want, you can play 5 out, right? So he's going to allow you even more floor spacing if you play him next to Tyrese Maxey. Dalton Connect, I thought that was a great get for the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, that was a guy that I wanted Memphis to take at 9 if they couldn't get Klingon. And so Connect would have made a ton of sense had they gone the shooter route. He drops all the way to 17, and he's a bucket, man. He can put the ball in the basket. Uh, we'll see how they, where his minutes come, what unit he's on the floor with, et cetera, et cetera. But you can never have enough scoring in this league. And again, another guy that can shoot the basketball, almost shot it at 40 on 6.5 attempts per game. So that's a good get there. Tristan Da Silva was the guy that I was interested in. The Orlando Magic need shooting desperately. We all saw that in the Cavalier series in the first round. So to add a guy that shot it over 40% on volume last year for Colorado, who has some size at roughly like 6'8" or so, is a good add for Orlando. This makes a ton of sense for them, and it's a nice add there. So anyway, and God damn it, the Celtics get on my nerves. They took Baylor Shireman out of Creighton, which was a guy that I targeted with with that 39th pick, hoping that he would last to the second round. Memphis could potentially get aggressive in day two if Shireman were there. He's the perfect Celtics selection. I hate the Celtics. I hate the Celtics. They do it again. Anyway, I digress. So that's a little bit of NBA talk. I told you most of this podcast is going to be, it's a bonus pod, so it's going to be a lot of NBA, a lot of off-brand stuff. It wasn't going to be your typical standard podcast. And sticking with that theme, um, you know what? I'll integrate some football real quick, and then we'll come back, and then we'll talk Blue Eye Samurai. So let's jump into um, the gym dropping session real quick, shall we? Why not? Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So I was listening to Tom Brady on the Colin Cowherd show the other day. And this has become a theme for Tom Brady now. And this is something that I saw from Kobe Bryant towards the back end of his career and into retirement. So all we've ever known Kobe for was being this fierce competitor, Mamba mentality. He would sink his teeth into you and, with that venom. And, Kobe, if he was locked in and had any type of motivation, he could suffocate you, right? And we knew him for being this fierce competitor, a la Michael Jordan, which is why a lot of people compare Kobe to Jordan more so than LeBron, because Kobe was a killer, stone face assassin, similar to Mike. And they were wired almost exactly the same way. And a lot of Kobe's moves came from Mike. He admittedly talked about, stealing a lot of Mike's moves because that's who he grew up idolizing. So, and they were very good friends, obviously. So Kobe wasn't giving away any secrets when he was playing for the most part. A lot of times he would be standoffish with opponents and teammates alike. If you were willing to put in the work, you were one of his favorites. If you weren't, he was going to have a problem with you. That was the kind of fierce competitor that Kobe Bryant was during the duration of his career. As he got older, got into the twilight of his career, especially that last year. It felt like a world tour, if you will, going around the league. Everybody knew this was it for him. Teams were giving him video tributes and gifts and things of that nature. I want to say he might have been one of the first players to kind of experience that. Tim Duncan had a similar situation where, everyone knew it was his last year. They were getting him gifts, video tributes everywhere he went. I remember one team got him a rocking chair, things of that nature. But you could see Kobe letting his guard down at the end of his career, letting the young guys in, schooling the new school of players, giving them tips of the trade, talking about his mentality, how he would put in the work and what was required to have Mamba mentality. And he would talk more publicly about that. And you started to get a glimpse into the mind of Kobe Bryant. He did the documentary Muse and all of the things that you got to see from him. And you really got to figure out a little bit of what made Kobe Bryant tick as a player, but what also made him great, the amount of hours he put in and the amount of work and, what it took. And yeah, he could be a dick as a teammate, but it was because he wanted to win, right? Same thing with Tom Brady. I don't know if I've seen a quarterback, and it could go both ways. I know a lot of people used when they couldn't stand Tom Brady when he was a player. Oh, if that was such and such, they wouldn't say that that was competitiveness. They would say that he is doing this or that. Whereas with Brady, if he got in somebody's face, oh, he just wants to win. People used to always, you know, say that about Brady. Like Brady's an asshole. He's ripping into coaches, ripping into players. And if some other quarterback had done that, they would, see it as somebody being, immature or seeing them be a bad teammate, this, that, and the third. But Brady was just hyper competitive. And, Brady wasn't giving away any trades or tips. He wasn't trying to help you get better. Brady would always tell people who would ask him for, advice, I can give you that once I'm done. While I'm playing, I can't help you, right? That's how Kobe Bryant was wired. So to see the transformation now, the 180 being, displayed, where now Tom Brady is kicking game to all the young players, and he's sitting down doing interviews and talking about his mindset, what he would do, how he would attack defenses, how he would prepare and things of that nature. You're starting to see him turn into like a Kobe Bryant like figure in the way of, I'm letting you in as to my mindset and how I attacked and approached my day-to-day, my operation, what I saw when I went to the line of scrimmage. And we all know about TB12 and Alex Guerrero and, all of that stuff about him keeping his body in shape and how that allowed him to play as long as he did. But the mental side of it, we were really never allowed to be in that space because Brady kept us at arm's reach with that information, because he wasn't giving away any secrets, right? He wasn't going to try to give anybody a one up on him. You want that information, you got to wait until I'm out of the game. Then I'll give you all the game you want. Well, now he's giving out some of that game. And when he was on the Cowherd show this week, he was talking about a number of different topics. I think I'm going to play a soundbite on the show tomorrow. I may play it, I may not. We'll see. But it's just a quick little clip that somebody sent me about getting your receiver involved in the game. And, I've talked about this for years. Like, nothing drives me nuts more than not getting your best players involved in the game early as possible. I'm talking first possession of the game. I need my best player to touch it, right? So he talked about that. But the conversation that really got me to thinking about this was, he talked about his approach at the line of scrimmage and what he would go up to the line of scrimmage looking for, how he would attack teams, how tedious his preparation was, things that would allow him to be prepared in the event that this happened or that happened. He talked about continuity and how that affects your ability to do a lot of those things, and how important it is to have the same coordinator, to have the same offensive lines, to have the same, skill players and play with, the same guys for a number of years. Because if you have that synchronicity, if you have that continuity, then you have different situations that you can go back to and say, hey, remember when we did this? And of course they do, right? You can't do that if you've got 4 new offensive linemen. You can't even do what you did last year, right? So he talked about something as simple as getting to the line of scrimmage, identifying what the defense is doing, and then, countering off of that, which we know that's how the best minds at the quarterback position work. Show me what you're in, right? That's why you get all these shifts and motions now, because teams want to see. They want a glimpse into what it is you're doing. But with guys like Brady and Manning, you had to be super smart, and you had to be very careful about, tipping your hand as to what you wanted to do defensively. If they got any inkling as to what it is you were doing, you were toast pre-snap. And so he would talk about, like, hey, if I come to the line of scrimmage and we have a run play to the right, and he said, and the only thing that could defeat this run play is if they brought down a safety blitz on the right side. I'm not going to run that run play into a blitz that with a defender that we can't account for and send my running back into a 4-yard loss. I'm not doing that, right? So he's like, I got two options. Either we change this to a pass play or we flip the side of the run, right? But he also said, a lot of times with teams, if that team only safety blitzes 5% of the time, most teams will be like, hey, look, if they catch us with the safety blitz that one time out of the 14 times we run the ball to the right side and they safety blitz, they just won on that snap. We're not changing the play, just run it, right? And Brady's like, no, I'm not just gonna run it. If there's a 5% chance and I get any inkling that they're going to bring that safety, I need to be prepared for that 5%. And I need to have a call in place and everybody needs to know that call. And I can just go, Linda, 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 or Lucy, 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 right? And everybody knows exactly what we're doing. And we can go to that, right? And so, it took you into the mind of Tom Brady and he elaborated on it. Look, it's not often I tell you to check out something that Colin Cowherd has done, but that was a Brady interview that was well worth the time spent listening to it. And it gives me a little insight as to what I can expect from Tom Brady, the analyst, right? He's obviously going into the booth. He'll be alongside Kevin Burkhardt on Fox's number one team. And I think he's going to go in there and he's going to be a better version of Tony Romo. Now, excuse me, I don't know if he's going to have the excitement that Tony has, oh my gosh, Jim, they're going to go for it here, Jim. I'm excited. Like, I don't think you're going to get that out of Tom. But I do think, and I don't think he's going to be trying to predict plays necessarily. Maybe he will. I don't know if he'll have that be his style. I think he's going to be more of a Troy Aikman type, where he's going to give you the information, but he's not going to try to guess as to what's going to happen. He's going to give you all of the information and the details, like what this player was thinking when he made this decision. Like, this is what Mahomes saw. This is why he did what he did. This is what Josh Allen saw. This is what I would have done if I were in his shoes, right? Like, I think he's going to come from that perspective. I hope he doesn't do the this is what I would have done thing, because I forgot who was broadcasting who was doing that all the time. I was like, can you stop talking about what you would have done? You're not playing, bro. Like, just give us just analyze what you're seeing. Give us the information that we need to understand what's happening in front of us and what they maybe didn't do correctly there or what they did do well there. Like, give us that information. Don't keep telling us what you would have done in that situation. So it'll be interesting to see what Tom Brady, the analyst, looks like. But that was a really informative interview he had the other day, and it just reminded me of Kobe Bryant and how forthcoming he was with information at this point of his life. As you get older, all right, I don't need to keep withholding all of this info. I'm gonna give all the game I got. And Brady definitely was giving out some of the game, but it also lets you know that a lot of quarterbacks don't have the autonomy at the line of scrimmage to do what Brady was describing. There's probably only 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the NFL that have the ability to do what Brady was describing at the line of scrimmage in terms of changing plays, getting out of one look to something else. Everybody's got the ability to switch the side of a run. That's not hard to do, but analyzing the defense, understanding what's being done, and having a plan and being able to go up there and execute that plan. And even if you're not sure, but you think they're going to do this, and being able to switch the play and change it to something else, not a lot of quarterbacks have that autonomy at the line of scrimmage. Not everybody's being given that type of power, right? So, anyway, I digress. Let's get to social media maneuvers. I am a midnight marauder as we are approaching midnight on the East Coast. Let's get to the comment section, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on the comments today because, again, it's a bonus pod. But if you want your comment to be read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to potentially have it be read. But if you want to ensure that your comment is read tonight, the best way, most effective way is to super chat. That's going to um, that's going to jump you to the front of the line and ensure that your comment is read. I can't guarantee you that we'll get to a lot of comments tonight. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy, Chris. Thank you so much for your support, as always, who writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. What's up, Chris? Likewise, as always. 3 questions. 1, if Aaron Rodgers finishes with 1 Super Bowl win, would he have underachieved with his talent? Why or why not? I can answer that right now. Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. 2 and 3, what are your thoughts on Adebayo's deal, and where would you rank him in the NBA? So let's go to the Aaron Rodgers question first. If he only finished with 1 Super Bowl, would he have underachieved based off of his talents? Yes, because for a long time, before Mahomes hit the scene and has done what he has done, and Mahomes is a great example of a guy elevating his team to victories, and finding a way to get it done. And look, it's a team sport, and we give a lot of praise to the quarterback. We give a lot of blame to the quarterback. When Mahomes didn't win in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, he didn't play well, but he also was playing behind a porous offensive line that was decimated by injuries. But he took a lot of flack for that. He did not play well in that Super Bowl. His teammates did not help him. There were drop passes. Obviously, the offensive line was struggling. There was a lot going on there. But we've seen Mahomes pull out wins where the odds were stacked against them. You know, obviously the game against Buffalo, where they had no business being able to get, the 13-second game where they got the field goal to get the game into overtime and ultimately won, and no business happening. But that's Mahomes' magic, right? Finding a way when it doesn't seem like there is one. Aaron Rodgers was the most talented quarterback I had ever seen prior to Patrick Mahomes. And I was willing at one point to die on that hill. I was willing to die on that hill that he was better than Manning and, all these other quarterbacks. I was willing to do the Dan Marino thing. There are a lot of people who watched Dan Marino play in that era of football with Elway, Kelly, Marino, Montana, Young, Aikman, and all of those QBs that were in that era. And you will get people to this day that will tell you none of them were better than Dan Marino, and they'll die on that hill. I don't give a shit about the fact that he never won the Super Bowl. He was the best pure passer I've ever seen. You will get people who will die on that hill to this day. And they may not be wrong, by the way. I was willing to die on that hill at one point with Aaron Rodgers being better than Brady, being in terms of the best talent I had ever seen at the quarterbacks. I was willing to elevate him over everybody, and say he was the best quarterback. But the losses in the NFC Championship game, and the one that did it for me, and if you go back and watch that video, you will see how upset I was. Like, I was upset that he didn't get it done that year. It's the 2020 playoff loss to the Buccaneers at home as the number 1 seed. That can't happen. Rodgers was awful in that game. And he had the football twice, down like 4 with a chance to win, and he didn't get it done. And there was no excuse in my mind's eye. You needed to find a way to win. And for as many big wins as he's had in the regular season and the postseason, he just doesn't win in the championship game when it matters most. And again, he's really fortunate to have the one Super Bowl that he does have, because I've been adamant, and I know that they were leading in that game for much of it. But if Rashard Mendenhall doesn't fumble, the Steelers are going to go down the field. They had all the momentum. They're going to go down. They're going to score. They're going to take the lead. And I think they're going to ultimately win that game. And Rodgers doesn't even have a Super Bowl right now. So he's fortunate to have the one that he does have. But I know the loss against the Seahawks in 2014 in the NFC Championship game isn't his fault. If they can recover an onside kick, they're going to the Super Bowl, and they probably win the Super Bowl that year. I really think that they would have beaten the New England Patriots that year, because the Seahawks should have beaten the New England Patriots that year if they would have just run it with beast mode instead of letting Russell Wilson throw the football from the one. So that one's not his fault, but they got trounced by the Falcons in 2016 in the championship game. And look, Rodgers did his best that season. They had no business being in the NFC Championship game. He put that team on his back and got them to the NFC Championship game. They weren't good defensively, and they just ran into a buzzsaw. The Falcons were the best team in the NFC that year by far and away, and they proved it, and they got trounced. But it wasn't that one in particular. It's the one in 2020, right? That really, it's the loss to the 49ers in the divisional round after being the number one seed and coming off of the bye and losing to the 49ers at home, scoring 10 points. It's the loss in 2020, when you're the number one seed, this year one of your best shots to win a Super Bowl, and you don't make it to the Super Bowl because you can't beat Tom Brady in his first year in Tampa Bay. Like, I think it's not only the fact that he's only played one Super Bowl, so he's only played in one Super Bowl. That I think that's the thing that's very disheartening, is he's only played in one Super Bowl. Right? Like, that's the part that's hard for me to wrap my brain around. Because you can say what you want about Peyton Manning, and he had only won, one Super Bowl until he got to that last year in Denver. But Manning had played in like 4 Super Bowls, lost to the Saints, beat the Bears, lost to the Seahawks, and then beat the Panthers. He played in 4 Super Bowls though. The fact that he's only been to one is a bit disheartening. And with his skill set, he should have been able to, with some of the offenses that he's led, he should have played in at least 2 or 3 Super Bowls, a bare minimum. And again, 2014 is not his fault. 2014 is not his fault. But remember, they didn't lose that game in regulation. They lost that game in overtime. But that's nor here nor there. They shouldn't have even been in that position in 14. He had done enough. They should have won that game. And they didn't recover an onside kick. But yes, my answer to that is yes. If he only wins one Super Bowl, if he doesn't make it back to another Super Bowl, never plays in a second Super Bowl, doesn't win, obviously, if he doesn't play in another one, he doesn't win another one. I have issue with that. Yes, I do. I think he does. I think that qualifies as underachieving for sure. Then you asked me about Bam Adebayo's deal. Look, you're talking about a guy that is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year almost every year, right? He's in that conversation. He's a two-way player. He can score. He's selfless. There are nights where he only takes 6 shots, but he's still gonna, no matter what, he's gonna give you effort on the defensive end, right? His ability to defend, switch, go out, defend on the perimeter, protect the rim, his ability to shoot. And I think I don't know if there's another evolution to his game, but the next evolution would be for him to be able to take his game out to the 3-point line, which he right now currently isn't a guy that can hurt you from behind the arc. You would love to see him add that to his game. This next chapter of his career, this next deal that he just signed, this massive extension. It was something like 3 years, 166 million or something crazy like that. I saw. I don't remember the exact number, but yeah, it was crazy. The amount. Let me see if I can pull up the deal real quick and see what the deal was for him. But I think it was something like that. 166 mil or something like that. Let's see, Bam, bio contract. Yeah, 3 years, 166. I was right. So for me, look, NBA players are going to get broken off, and if you are playing with the team that drafted you, that means and you've been an all NBA player. I don't know if he has or not, but that makes you eligible for, the Supermax and all of that stuff and these extensions. And with this new TV money that's coming in here, the deals are only going to get larger. So yeah, it's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. 3 years, $166 million extension. I mean, I'm trying to do the math. I mean, so 60 would be 180, 50 would be 150. So 55 would be 165. So yeah, right. It's 55 million-ish, you know, essentially a year on this extension. I mean, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but that's almost the going rate in the NBA for an all NBA defending player that, you know, can score, can, impact the game in a number of different ways. That's the going rate. You got to pay your guys, right? So, um, is is it a deal? Let me make sure I answer your question. Where would I rank him in the NBA in terms of what, like overall, like not as a big, but just overall in the NBA? I would say he's probably a top 50 player in the NBA, right? Clearly, unless you have the basketball in your hands, it's hard for you to penetrate the top 20. You got to have the ball in your hands to be one of the top 10, 15, 20, 25 players in the league. You can't be dependent on somebody else getting you the rock. And not that Bam can't put it on the floor, because he can, and he can create for himself, but that's not his game. That's not the strength of his game. The strength of his game is facing up, getting to a spot on the court, and rising up from 16 feet away on a mid range. Yeah, he can put it on the floor, get past you, and dunk it or lay it up. But again, he's not a guy that is going to have the ball in his hands a ton. And he can play without the ball in his hands, which makes him a unique player, because he can impact the game in a number of different ways, and but he doesn't have to have 17 shots every night to do it, to impact the game. You know what I mean? So I'd say he's a top 50 player in the NBA. You probably could reduce that down and say he's a top 40, 35. I don't know if he's a top 30 player in the league. But when you start rattling off names and you go around the league and you start getting the guys that impact the game, you got to get to Bam Adebayo pretty quickly. because of what he can do defensively to impact basketball games. Part of why the Heat are so good come playoff time is because of Jimmy Butler and what he's going to do on the defensive end, but Bam Adebayo and what he does also on the defensive end as a rebounder, as a shot alterer, as a guy that has the ability to switch 1 through 5, right? That is a rare trait in today's league. Somebody that can switch and play all 5 positions on the floor, which Bam can. So, Kevin, been a member for 6 months. Really appreciate you. Kevin writes, I don't know how much longer I can be a Kings fan for, Lou. So I guess you didn't love the Devin Carter pick. I mean, the only thing that I can say that was a little bit frustrating if you're a Kings fan is, bro, don't we already have like 2 or 3 dudes that essentially do the same exact thing and are roughly the same size? Like, how many of these dudes do we actually need anyway? Good question. And clearly they're looking to upgrade. I mean, you got Malik Monk, you brought him back. Similar size, probably a little bit bigger. I think Malik's probably a little bit bigger, but similar skill set. I wouldn't call Malik a dog on defense like I would Devin Carter, but Malik can fill it up. He can score, right? And he's not 6'1", 6'2". I think Malik Monk's closer to 6'4", but same difference. The kid out of Baylor y'all took a couple years ago, that same, I feel like they've got a similar DNA profile. Like, how many of these dudes do you need? But Carter might be different though. He might be different. So we'll see. Clearly you didn't love the pick, but you got to give it a chance. You got to see what they see. Clearly they see something. They see something. So give it a chance. See how it goes. All right. Let's get to Blue Eye Samurai real quick. DJ23 says, Blue Eye Samurai was great. Knew you would like it. Mizu is a badass. Episode 5, when she killed all those assassins. I'm looking forward to season 2. Episode 5 was crazy. Because Mizu kept digging deep. So let me give you my quick analysis. I'm not going to talk your head off about Blue Eye Samurai. I loved it. And I told you guys this last podcast episode, so that's not a surprise. I loved it. I loved the storyline. I love the characters. I love the backstory. I love how they went to the future, or not to the future. They went to the past, and they panned back to the present day. Then they went back to the past and kind of pieced different parts of the story together. Gave you just enough, but not too much. Kept you wondering, well, what about this thing? And then they would go back and tie up all the loose ends. And I thought it was well done, really well done. That said, couple of things. One, I felt like at times, even though Mizu was put down, and if it wasn't for Ringo on 2 or 3 different occasions, she would have been dead. But it also felt like she had superpowers too, right? Because she got stabbed with the claw from the I forgot the name of the guy with the all of those soldiers with the claws, the 1,000 claws or whatever they were called. And that was a significant stab wound that she suffered. And she was struggling with it. And there's no way Like that was the only like that one, and when she was at the when she was going to the temple to try to get to Fowler, and she had to fight all of those soldiers essentially with no sword because her sword was lodged in the wall because she needed it to leap over one of the trap doors on the ground that was extremely huge, bigger than the one she had just jumped over. First of all, how are you leaping over? Like, I'm getting a little too literal here. How are you leaping over these contraptions and you had a full beam go through your ankle, right? There's no way she's leaping over some of this shit. So I was like, some of that stuff, I was like, it's almost like she had superpowers almost because she's doing some of this stuff. When she got stabbed, there's no way she was gonna be able to battle through that stab wound that she had. And then they trapped her under that door. They because she tried to trap them inside, and they had the door on top of her, and they were all on top. Like there was no way she was supposed to get out of that situation, right? So it was a lot of different situations. I was like, how'd she get out of that? But outside of that, and Ringo always seemed to be there when it seemed like she was uh, essentially in a lose-lose situation when they were when they when Shindo had offered her an opportunity to get into the temple with the barrel, and she chopped his hand off, and he talked about the archers that he had. They were stuck, and here comes Ringo to save the day, right? When she jumped out of the temple, when they got their asses kicked by Fowler into the water, she didn't make it back. Um, she didn't make it back up to the surface. Ringo pulled her out, and he was done. He was like, You're not a samurai. You're not honorable." He was supposed to have left. How did Ringo even get there? Right? I was wondering, like, how did he even get there? Do you know how much she had to do to get to where she almost drowned in the little underground contraption when she tried to unlock the door. Like, how the hell did Ringo get all the way there? Right? Like, there's questions I have. I know I'm being literal, right? I'm being a little too literal, but I get it from my son. My son has trained me to be like, yo, like I bet you if I tell him to watch it, he's gonna be like, well, how did this happen and how did that happen? But I love the storyline. I love the plot. I really wanted her being Mizu, to slice Fowler's throat. Don't let him con you into you need me if you want to find the other two. And I was just cut his shit, bro. Just slice that bitch. I don't need you don't need him for shit. You figured out who he was, right? And you figured out where he was and you got to him, right? You'll figure the shit out. Like slice his shit and let's roll. Right. I because Fowler was pissing me off, right? I was mad that she allowed his ass to stay alive, but she does need him. Like if he's in London, which is where they're heading, which is where they were heading at the end of season 1, um, then she's gonna need him to help her navigate all of that. But I don't trust him. I would cut his ass up and killed him. Um, Somebody that really pissed me off throughout was Akemi because she didn't know what the hell she wanted to do. And she was spoiled, number one. Her dad ain't shit, and he proved to be a big piece of shit when you realize that he was gonna be a part of the overthrowing of the Shogun, and he was with Fowler. And the crazy part is Fowler was probably gonna kill him too. And the fact that everybody thought they was gonna be able to kill the other person and be in sole control and possession of power was comical, right? Because Shindo was playing both sides. Like Shindo really did want Fowler dead. Remember, he tried to get them to find the weapons. Fowler didn't know. that Shindo was the inside man and that he was the one that told the Shogun guys where they could find the weapons, which ultimately I thought so here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought he had thrown out the whole, hey, the weapons are coming over on some fishermen boats in 2 days. I thought he threw that out there as bait to see if somebody would check the boats. And if they checked the boats and the stuff wasn't there, he would know. The only person I told that to was Shindo, right? And he thought it was the Shogun dudes. So he had them executed. They brought them out there target practice when they got all the guns, but he had stashed them in a whole different setup. And so I thought Shindo was going to get it before then, but Shindo was playing both sides of the fence because he really wanted Fowler dead, but he was in too deep. And so he had to roll with him because it was too late to turn back, and Fowler was too powerful now. They had to get him before he got the guns. Once he got the guns and the soldiers got the guns, it wasn't shit he could do. But he was a piece of shit too, and I'm glad he got his. And I'm glad that it was Tigan to kill him because he tortured the hell out of Tigan. He cuts him. He shoots him. He hits him with hammer and all that bullshit. So at the end, he got his ass. He kills him with sword. Right? I love that shit. Like, get his ass. But Akemi just pissed me off because she was spoiled. She didn't know what the hell she wanted to do. And at the end, she had some badassery sprinkled on her, right? Now, all of a sudden, she had a chance to go and she could have, ran off with Seki. They could have gotten away. I was mad. I knew Seki was going to die. I was like, I know what's about. As soon as I heard that last gunshot, I said, they wanted you to think it was her, but we knew it wasn't her. We knew it was Seki. Because Seki was telling her, we got to go. We got to go. We got the money. Let's go, right? And she was like, no, I want to stay. I don't want to run. Let's shut the gate, and make sure that they don't get out and they'll burn with the rest of the empire. And so she was determined to, again, she got sprinkled with some badassery. So now she wanted to be a badass instead of running to freedom and safety, which is all she talked about the entire series. Is I want to be free. I don't want you to, tell me what my life should be and determine what I need to be doing. And she got her opportunity, and instead of her running with it, she got the badassery. And what happened was, Madam Kaji, when she got into her ass, when that last time that they spoke before she was to get married, and she told her, women control men because we got that box, and they can't resist this box, right? We got all the power. They try to act like they got the power and they feel almighty, but we the ones that make them weak. She was like, you want to be powerful? You control your husband. You control everything. You got the power. And then she dropped that F-bomb on her. Like, you can have the effing power, right? You decide. It was that right. It was that moment. She was like, you know what? She's right. And from that point on, she saw that her husband wasn't a tyrant. He just had a stuttering problem. So now she felt like, oh, I can help him, but I can also control him. He's not a tyrant, right? And the sex scenes and the graphic nature of that shit was crazy. Even that was well done. That stuff was I thought tactfully and tastefully done. Even the parts that were like, oh, that's some real nasty shit right there. Even that stuff was done in a manner where you can go, I could see some old nasty shit like that happening in the 16th century, 15th, 16th century. I could see some nasty shit like that going down. So it was well done. And I can't wait to see season 2 because I feel like the women are getting really, really ruthless. The mom, told the sons, "Hey, nah, lock that door." Those higher those that high class, they ain't shit. And they seen your dad get shot in the head. They dead to us. Lock that door. They gonna burn in this bitch with the rest of them. We gonna start this shit over, and it's gonna be us. So moms is getting ruthless. You can see Akemi is about to turn ruthless. First of all, she about to handle her dad. She's like, nah, I got my dad. Don't worry about him. I'll take care of him. So she about to get ruthless. She about to be running shit. I wonder if there's gonna be a power struggle between her and the mom. That's what it feels like. And then Tigan, I forgot what happened to him at the end. Because he wanted to go with Akemi, who's technically married. He didn't give a shit about that. He knew she was married and he didn't care. He wanted to run off, start a new life. He was like, to hell with this being a warrior shit and all of this samurai. I'm done with that shit. I'm just trying to be happy and I want to be happy with you. And she was like, he's like, I'm not worried about being the greatest anymore. She was like, well, I am. I want to be great now. So I wonder what happens of, what becomes of Tigan now. Like he really doesn't fit. It's kind of just lost. So a lot of storylines still there left to be decided. And we'll see what season 2 looks like. I always worry about shows when I don't hear anything about them, but that was 2023. I'm not going to trip. And, having gone through the writer's strike, that delayed a lot of stuff that should have been out this year already. So I'm going to look it up now to see if there's a season 2. I'm assuming. I didn't know Kevin Hart had something to do with this, right? It was really well done. I literally sat there and watched all 6 episodes that were remaining yesterday after I got off the podcast. Crazy, right? I know. I told you I was going to binge it, though. And, what's crazy is I wanted to stop at episode 6. And then Mizu was almost dead in episode 6. And so I was like, I can't stop here. I got to see what happened. You left me on a cliffhanger. So then I watched episode 7 and I'm like, bro, you got 1 episode left. What are we doing? Just watch the last episode. I'm like, yo, it's about to be 4:00 though. Do you really want to do this? I was like, come on, bro. It's 1 episode. And the beauty, had every episode been an hour and 2 minutes like the first episode was. Nah, couldn't do it. But the difference was after episode 1, the episodes ranged from 47 to 40 minutes. Varying times, 43, 45, 44, 47, 40. Nothing exceeded 47 minutes, I don't believe. At least the episodes that I watched from episodes 3 to 8. So it made it easier for me to be like, yeah, I can do this last episode. But anyway, it was a really well done series. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Mizu is a badass. And I like the fact that Mizu was getting her ass kicked too. Like, first of all, Mizu's a female. And I like the fact that they didn't try to make her, like I told you, there were only a certain number of situations where they just turned her into a complete badass. One of them was when she went looking for Fowler to the temple and she's making her way up and nothing's stopping her, right? Nothing is stopping her. She's got the hallucinogen in her, the flower, and she's, powering through that with the little bomb that she threw out, little grenade she threw out. She's got the pipe through her ankle. She's powering through that. But if not for Ringo, I'll say this, if not for Ringo, she probably have been done for like 2 or 3 times over. So, you can see the her character change over time from a reluctant, um I'm trying to think of the technical term for the main character. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. I need to go back to English 101. But you could see her changing from a reluctant, um, main character with good attributes, but clearly was motivated for all the wrong reasons, to now someone that is becoming somewhat honorable. And she's allowing her emotions to be felt a little bit more. She's still on a mission, but she cares about people more. Um, I always felt like she was gonna end up with Tigan, and now that Akemi is married, I still think there's a shot down the road she could end up with Tigan somehow, because Tigan still doesn't know that she's a female. And when they rolled over on each other the first time and they looked in each other's eyes, I was like, uh-oh. But Tigan thinks that he's a, he's a he. Mizu's a dude. So he's like, whoa, whoa, bro. I'm, chill. But Mizu, I think, is starting to fall for Tigan. And I thought they tricked me. They got me. I thought when they were sitting in um the master's the master swordsman's um his cabin, and she was like, I got something to tell you. I thought she was about to tell him that he was a she, but she tricked me. I tricked you. I tricked you. She told him that Fowler was planning an attack on the Shogun, and that she had met Akemi and turned her over to the back to her father, essentially. And so he was pissed. Then he was like, well, you know what? You are a monster. And just when everything was getting good and she was starting to feel good about herself, you are a monster. And when I come back, I'm going to kill you and all that shit. I was like, oh, here we go again with that bullshit. But we'll see. Season 2, I'm with you, DJ. Season 2 is gonna be crazy. I can't wait for it. Um, and I'm interested to see what these characters look like, and if we get any cameos from some of the characters from season 1, and if there's any relevance for them. I would assume they're gonna go back and forth between Mizu and her voyage to London and what she's got going on over there, and then they're gonna go to Akemi and the Shogun trying to rebuild their empire, and the mom and Akemi's role in all of that, and I guess everything else kind of rolled up into that. So I think it's gonna be 2 separate storylines that they'll be kind of interchanging between in season 2, and that should be a lot of fun. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to garbage time. I mean, really, that was garbage time, if we're being honest. Um, I wasn't looking to talk your head off on this bonus podcast. I was just coming in here to get a couple things off my chest. NBA, the Brady thing that I had seen, because this is it for the podcast this week. If you didn't know, now you know. And and I wanted to talk about, really, the reason I jumped up here was because everything was so fresh with Blue Eye Samurai. I didn't want to wait until next week when some of the details would be a little hazy. I watched 6 out of the 8 episodes yesterday. So everything was fresh, or really, yeah, it is yesterday because it's after 12 now. But everything is so fresh in my mind right now. I wanted to talk about it while it was fresh in my mind. So I knew if I sat on this the likelihood is I wasn't going to do a podcast tomorrow because I have a Washington show tomorrow night. Not going to do a podcast on Friday. So this would be lodged in my brain until next week. And then who knows what I would retain. Like if I could remember some of the intricate details. But yeah, it's a really good series. You guys have not missed yet. You are 3 from 3. You are 3 for 3 from deep in your suggestions to me. So keep them coming, and I'd like it to be newer shows. Like a lot of you are like, yo, you should it's a little old. Well, if it's an older show, I know about it. And it's not too many older shows that I don't know. I just either have chosen not to watch it or it's not my speed. It's not my type of show. So the newer ones are the ones like that came out in 2021, 22, 23, 24. Those are the ones that I don't know about a lot of times. They just slipped under the radar. But a lot of the older shows, I'm aware of them. I'm aware. So if you got any other new shows, let a brother know. Because y'all haven't missed yet. And I think y'all got a feel for what I like. I like badassery. Mizu was a badass. And the thing I love about badass is they're going to find a way. And Mizu was going to find a way. And sometimes they need a little bit of help. And that's where Ringo came in. That's where Tigan came in. But she's on her way to London. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to season 2. That's for sure. Anyway, I digress. Y'all get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we will reconvene next week. And I got to start getting on these divisional draft breakdowns. We still got like 5 divisions to go. We only did like 3 of them. So I think we're going to resume that next week, start knocking out some of that stuff, and maybe have some throwback podcasts, maybe throw in 2 or 3 of those to make up for lost time. So we'll get to some of that stuff next week and have some fun, with the remaining non-football weeks that exist. I think we're now closing in on 3 weeks left with no camp. I think the earliest report to camp is like July 13th or something like that. So we'll be there before you know it. Teams showing up. Every team is in camp, fully in camp by the 23rd. Every team is in camp by the 23rd or the 24th, I believe. One or the other. I'd have to look at that list again. But it'll be here before you know it. So we'll enjoy the time we have while we have it. Because once football starts, all this other sidebar conversation stuff pretty much goes out the window. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on this bonus pod installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Until then, you guys take care. God bless and good night.